So hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for our MovingWorlds Institute live Q&A webinar and Ask Us Anything. My name is Mark Warshawski. I'm the co-founder and CEO of MovingWorlds.org. I'm also joined by Cole Hoover, based in Seattle, the director of our institute, Millie, who is currently down in Cusco, Peru, as well as Alexandra, who's based in our Medellin, Colombia office. And shortly, you also get to hear from MovingWorlds Institute Alumni Fellow Jill, who will also be sharing her story of what it's like to go through the Institute. So in hopes of keeping that short, before passing it over to Cole and team, I really just wanted to say, welcome and thank you for being here. We love the MovingWorlds Institute. It is such a treasure of this organization, and it's a really incredible opportunity where we get to interact and support people like you who are working through a question that, I think we all ask of ourselves. And it's one that brought a lot of the team members to MovingWorlds. It's a question that brought our board and our advisors and many of our strategic partners. And I think it's a question that maybe we don't ask ourselves enough, or rather, we don't have enough places to ask ourselves this question. And it's this idea of if your time on earth is limited and there's no shortages of challenges, how can you use the time that you do have to make the world better? And of course, the majority of one's working life is spent in a career path. And what we really use the Institute to do and to explore is, how can you use that career? How can you use something that becomes not only from a time perspective so much of your time, but also from oftentimes an identifier for people? What is a way that you can use your career to be something that you are truly proud at? And what happens when you join alongside, many other people that are going through that same exploration and, using their light and their insights and their network to lift you up in the same way that you lift them up. And that's really what we focus on here with the MovingWorlds Institute, is to figure out how can we help everybody's light shine a little bit brighter, and how can we activate that through people's career paths where they can not only ensure that their own work is fulfilling and purposeful and impactful, but by engaging into an organization, you can help move those organizations and employers into more world positive organizations as well. And, a quick maybe snapshot through the MovingWorlds history by virtue of sharing a slew of articles that are just a couple that we like to highlight at this time. MovingWorlds, when we started almost a decade ago, the idea was to explore ways that we could help get expertise to the parts of the world that need it most and provide life-transforming experiences to those that give. And we've been fortunate and working incredibly hard to build up our team, build up our advisors, build up our board in a way where we're solving problems not only for social enterprises in the field, but also for professionals that are looking to use their field experience as a development and a growth experience. And, starting in the upper left here, Microsoft was the first corporation to model one of their skills-based programs that actually recently just won an international award for best skills-based volunteering program. We've since got to partner with other corporations, Siemens and Booking and more, to help explore in ways that corporations can engage in more social and world positive activities. And we've been able to take the best learning from all of these programs, from our incredible advisory and mentoring pool, and create the MovingWorlds Institute, which takes really our best in class products, training, processes, and then enables us to dedicate the most MovingWorlds time to support individuals as they go through the fellowship. And I think that's really created a really, really powerful program where it's a safe place for us to get together, to explore career growth, career transitions, and more, alongside a group of really inspiring peers that are doing the same thing. So with that, Cole, I'll hand it over to you to talk more about how the Institute works, but just really want to say thank you to everybody for joining us. And we look forward to getting to meet you and learn more about you and find out ways that we can support you the best. So Cole, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mark. Hey, everyone. Happy Thursday. So just to build a little bit on what Mark had said, so we've spent, over a decade learning about how people can translate their skills into an impact, and have taken a lot of those learnings that, like Mark said, have been built at some of the largest companies around the world, helping their employees to have a greater impact and connect with their purpose. And through the Institute, we've designed a program that has been, over the past couple of years, helping people, mid-career folks, to transition their skills into a greater impact. And it's all about not only connecting to a network of social entrepreneurs and mentors and industry leaders, but also building on skills like human-centered design, shared value, how to make a business case for impact, and also cross-cultural leadership. So all of these things are set up for you to better align your career and your aspirations to make sure that as you progress in the work that you're doing, that the impact is maximized. And we have plenty of stories of people who've gone through these programs, like Anish, like Jill, like others that we talked about on our last webinar. You can find those on our blog, and you can always reach out to us to hear more of these stories. But just quickly to give you all a little bit of a snapshot of what this looks like in practice. Mark, if you could advance to the next slide. So I think that from what Mark and I had shared, you can get a little bit of an idea of some of the values that we hold as a program. The MovingWorlds Institute is really different from a lot of programs out there. It's about this personal, purpose-driven work and how it connects to the external world and your external impact. But just to make some of those values a little bit more tangible, would love to go through kind of the flow of our 6-month program. So everything begins in the inspiration phase. So we model our process off of the human-centered design one. And that begins with inspiration, which is about asking big questions, going out there, learning a lot of new things, being open, kind of living in that ambiguity, but knowing that you're being held throughout a process. And this all begins at our immersive kickoff. And Mark, if you could advance the slides there. So we come together and we center on your purpose. We find that so many people, highly skilled people, high potential folks who've done amazing things in their career, one of the most important things that we do is starting with the foundation of exploring their purpose, their strengths, the things that make them feel fulfilled and complete in the work that they're doing. And we do that through a series of assessments that begin the whole experience and then continue throughout in accountability groups, which are a smaller subset of your fellowship, through conversations with mentors who are leaders in social impact fields, and also through workshops with people who work out in the field, whether it's in foundations, in government, or in business, trying to make a social impact. And so next, what we really try to kind of emphasize is how to build purpose-driven leadership skills. So this, again, is through connections with people all throughout the field. It's through a supported curriculum. It's through stretch experience, through your experteering. We focus on not only trying to help people to identify how they can lead in a way that actually is connected to their purpose, but also how they can benefit from trends like network leadership, building trust across a lot of sectors, trying to have a social impact. How to approach leadership situations in cross-cultural contexts. So many of our placements with social enterprises in the field are in countries different than the home country of our fellows. So we try to make them as effective as possible as cross-cultural leaders. And we further emphasize this through case-based discussions and cohort-based conversations about what it is to further kind of identify what are your skills, what are your gaps, and how we can turn you into the most effective, impact-driven leader possible. So the next thing that we build on is how to really understand scaling social impact. We get so many people who come to our program, whether it's from government, education, the private sector. They have these amazing tangible skills, but sometimes they're lacking the vocabulary of social entrepreneurship and social impact. And so by building on their understanding of how to scale social impact, whether it's through concepts like human-centered design, using tools like business model generation, or through connecting to the stories of industry leaders who've done it themselves, we try to provide this vocabulary that we find with many of our fellows as they apply to work moving forward, or they kind of redefine their positions within their current companies. Having this kind of shared vocabulary about the social impact field can be a huge benefit and allows people to really make a move and take their skills to the next level related to social and environmental impact. We layer that on with case studies and learnings about sustainable development goals and social enterprises in the field. And we continue to build the program to give you the best understanding possible of these areas. So not only are you getting it when you're in the field, kind of within a social enterprise, but you're preparing for it with case studies that begin at our 3.5-day immersion. So in addition to that, we want you to grow throughout this whole program. So we are going to put a lot of content your way, but it's within a container that you can manage. We really celebrate a diversity of perspectives. We have people from all different walks of their careers, different family situations. So we make this as flexible and as structured as possible for people to succeed with different commitments in their lives. We do this through a goal setting, a project matching process, that takes you through the planning of experteering, and then finally, when you return, a reflection and reintegration process. So throughout this whole 6 months, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to do it at your own pace, and we have the resources set up to help you to succeed and set goals that at the end of the 6 months, you're feeling really good about. So some final pieces that we emphasize is one of the core reasons that people come to us is whether they're leaving their job to try to make a search, they're doing a huge transition, or whether they're within their company and they're trying to propose a new role or kind of gain some skills that would help them to shift their company in a new direction. We work with an internal social impact career coach who helps you to better tell your career story, to understand how your strengths translate into an impact. And then finally, we guide our fellows through a capstone process that really culminates all their learnings, their experteering experience, the networking that they've been doing, and puts it into a artifact that you can take moving forward to tell the story effectively. So finally, we do a lot of networking. So not only are we exposing you to a whole universe of social impact terms, social impact case studies, social enterprises in the field, we're helping you through your mentorship, through your industry leader webinars, and connections with other people through our network to build some kind of next steps for how you can find your place in the social impact ecosystem and feel really confident doing that. So this is a little bit of a snapshot of kind of what we do in the 6 months. I know there's a lot of information. We'll have plenty of time for questions, but we find that because we're going to be tackling some really big things as a part of the fellowship, it can be really useful kind of as our contract to you, just to show you that there is this container that will be holding you throughout the process. So just to make things a little bit more real, we have the honor of bringing an actual MovingWorlds Institute alumni, Jill Rochot, on here to talk a little bit more about her experience as a part of the fellowship, through experteering and beyond. So just to kick things off, Jill, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us. And would love it if you could just share a little bit about yourself and about your experience as a fellow.
Great. Thank you so much, Cole. Hopefully everyone can hear me. As Cole said, my name is Jill, and I was part of one of last year's cohorts with MovingWorlds Institute. And similar to what Mark and Cole have been saying, what drew me into MovingWorlds originally was the curiosity about a different sort of sector, and also for me, a lot of questions around my own career and doing some career exploration. I had an itch to start moving in a different direction with my career, away from the government sector where I currently am, and possibly into a social enterprise or an NGO environment. I also really wanted an opportunity to use my communications and marketing skills in a more global way and a more impactful way. And I was interested in how human-centered design intersects with communications work. So I was able to explore all of this and more than I originally bargained for through the MovingWorlds Institute community and the cohort, the resources that were shared through the cohort, as well as my time experteering with the Women's Bakery Rwanda. I spent 3 months in Kigali working with the Women's Bakery Rwanda team. They're a mix of both Rwandans and expat Americans. They're a hybrid social enterprise who empowers women through business and education to work in a bakery setting. Everything that they create is locally sourced, nutritious, and affordable, so that they're also stimulating local economies, supporting public health, and making healthy food options accessible to those who don't necessarily always have those kinds of choices. They currently own 3 bakeries in and around Kigali, and they've helped to start several more. So when I arrived, they were just about to launch their flagship bakery as well as open a cafe. I worked through the planning document that MovingWorlds will provide to you, which I was a huge fan of. It's very, very in-depth, but it really helps you and the organization you're going to expertise with get your head around what you're going to be doing, and helps you start to immerse yourself into where you're going so you can really hit the ground running when you get there. My original project plan was to do a communications and marketing strategy for the cafe. When I arrived in Kigali, it was completely different than anything I had ever done before. I've had many questions from people asking me to describe my experience. I found that very difficult to do in a few short words, but it was both incredible and transformational for me. Coming from a large and often slow and bureaucratic organization in government, it was really refreshing, but also challenging to work in a small, nimble, and very adaptable team. But with that, when I arrived, I saw different kinds of communications and marketing gaps other than the project that I had originally signed on to do. And I was immediately empowered and trusted by the team to follow through on that, which was really, really amazing. So I spent the first sort of third of my time in Kigali doing market research, helping the organization explore and learn a little bit more about who their customers are, and then turning that into personas. So that's something that they would be able to use on an ongoing basis. And this, as a communications or marketing person, was really fun. Mostly because it was one of the first times I was able to conduct market research and have absolutely no idea what the results or what the answers were going to be. And it was also a really amazing way to get more immersed in the culture and learn more about the community that I was going to be designing in. After working through that, I also created a marketing and sales workbook and did training on it for the bakery operations managers to help them create and achieve their marketing and sales goals in a little bit of an easier way and help push them towards profitability. And then lastly, I did create the communications and marketing cafe plan. I worked really closely with the team on it, as well as helped to mentor their new marketing coordinator. Her name is Fran. And just seeing even her confidence and excitement grow as we worked together was really, really amazing and really inspiring. She is such a rock star, and by the end, I really let her take the lead on drafting the actual marketing plan. And I was there more so as a support and to challenge her on different things as needed. And so in that way, I'm hopeful that the tools that were left behind will be more sustainable, because Fran was really able to take ownership of things. And more than just working on the project, I was lucky enough to have some really incredible experiences with the team. The photo that is up on the slide there is from one of my favorite days while I was in Kigali. I was able to bake with the women in the kitchen for a day. And the women who are working there have doubled and sometimes even tripled their incomes since they started working with the women's bakery. And they're such an inspiring group of women. They talk about the self-confidence that they've learned and gained, not only through in the kitchen, but in their communities, and the way that they're able to raise their children and move through their communities has completely transformed because of the work that the women's bakery has done. We didn't all speak the same language in the kitchen, but we spent that day laughing, singing, dancing, and baking together. It was very soul feeding to be able to be there. And so what I learned after my 3 months in coming home are a ton of things, and all of them, the experience and moving through the Institute was really invaluable to me. I can't say yet that I've come back and come through all of it with all of the answers to the questions that I went in with, but I am definitely on the right path, and I'm gaining the different factors and different things to be able to push myself in the right direction and make the right choices for me going forward. And I did achieve a lot of my goals. I mean, I was able to use my skills in a more global way, and I was able to experiment with human-centered design as an approach to communications work. And far more than that, I learned a ton about myself through all of this, my purpose drivers, and where I can make an impact and the places that I may want to go next. And also got a window into a different sector that I hadn't had a chance to work in yet. And just about my own adaptability and to be able to work in a place where I didn't know really anything. It was very unknown. So now that I am home, I am continuing my exploration as to what's next for me. And I'm also trying to bring back what I've learned into the role I currently have with government. In government, we really love our processes. So one of the things I am trying to do is alter and change or create new processes in my work to try and put people back at the center of what we do and bring some of those human-centered design and shared value principles in. And then we, as a communications team at Transport Canada, then will have a greater ability to challenge the things that we do and why we do them, and suggest new ways of working that can have a better and greater impact on Canadians, which is who we're serving. And I think the last thing I'll leave it with is just the benefit of the MovingWorlds community and the cohort. The support that I've had from everyone has been amazing through this process. It is very helpful to have a whole community and cohort of people who are going through this process with you and can really help you be anchored and help you problem solve and help you go through all of the changes that you'll go through as you work through the fellowship. I've used the analogy in my cohort before, but for me, starting with the MovingWorlds Institute was really about stepping on a roller coaster and not knowing quite where I was going to end up. And through the fellowship and through my experteering, I'm finding those inner rails for myself, and the community and the cohort has really been the seatbelt that keeps me grounded so I can keep pushing forward. So I think I'll leave it at that. I'm happy to answer any questions that people may have. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jill. And yeah, and anyone, please send your questions in. Feel free to chime in. I had one question for you, Jill. I'm curious about what your mentorship process was like and how that either kind of built confidence or helped you to kind of keep going in the right direction through the fellowship experience.
Yeah, thank you for that. For me, the mentorship process was fantastic. The person that I was connected with, we had a lot of really deep and interesting conversations immediately. And I think what my mentor was able to do was really to help me see some of the themes and commonalities in my own story and in what I was looking for and trying to accomplish, and pushing me to really bring different parts of myself together and bring my whole self to what I was doing. I tended to keep sort of my professional self and my personal self a little bit separate, and she really encouraged me to bring all of that together and understand the true benefit of being able to bring your whole self to what you do. So that was really huge for me.
Awesome. One other question I have is, as a as a person who, you've worked in service, you've worked to benefit the people of Canada, like these have been things that have been part of your career. What was it like to take something like the purpose assessment and kind of get a deeper understanding of what fulfills you in your work, and how have you carried that forward?
Good question. So for me, I'm still working through some of that, but I would say that the process with the purpose drivers and doing some of that self-discovery has really allowed me to bring a different lens and perspective to not only the role I want to play in terms of what skills I bring to my role into an organization, but has given me a different perspective in terms of what sorts of environments, what sorts of teams that I'll thrive in and that makes sense to me. So it's given me a lot of understanding of the places where I feel a little bit stuck, where I currently am. It's given me a new vocabulary to really be able to understand why, and then to think about where I need to go next and the kind of places that will make sense for me to be in. And the experteering was a wonderful ability for me to be able to do that. So I not only was able to go through the matching process for my experteering in terms of trying to find the right fit for my skills, but I was also able then to look at it in terms of experimenting with working in a different kind of setting and trying to find an opportunity that fit more with my purpose drivers and something that is different from where I currently am to be able to do that exploration. So that was hugely valuable in just giving me a whole different vocabulary and making things a little bit more tangible for me.
Sweet, thanks, Jill. Well, Millie, Alexander, do we have any questions from the audience for Jill?
Indeed, we do. So just as a reminder to anyone who's new to the Zoom feature, there is a Q&A feature at the bottom menu, so feel free to send us your messages through there. So one of the questions, and I'm lumping a number of questions together here, and it's kind of for you, Jill, but then also maybe Mark and Cole can chime in a little bit more in terms of like how MovingWorlds supports this process. A lot of people are applying who are full-time, like professionals, and so they're curious to know, Jill, were your employers and managers supportive of your participation? And if not, like how did you get their buy-in?
Sure. So for me, I was very lucky to have the support, the full support of my manager in terms of taking time away to attend the webinars and to do some of the work, as well as be able to take 3 months to be able to go do my experteering. So I was very, very lucky in that respect.
Awesome, thank you. And Cole, maybe you can chime in a little bit more in terms of how MovingWorlds and the Institute can support applicants who may not have that support from their upper management.
Yeah, totally. So I would say, as we presented forward, there's a lot of content that we make available as you go through the Institute. But really, one of the focuses of it is making it as flexible and as customizable as possible. So, in every cohort, we have some people who, have full support of their managers or are in a career transition. But then we also have some people who are in a director role, who are going home to a family of a couple kids. Like, it's a full spectrum of people's availability. And we not only try to schedule programming, but also record programming to make it as accessible as possible on your time. But we also work with you to find placements in the field that maybe it looks more like 2 one-week placements. Maybe it's a 2-week placement. Maybe we're helping support you to do more virtual work with a team on the ground. Just know that we really are here to support people who are leaders in their mid-career who are wanting to make a change, and we really hold firm to making it as flexible as possible for folks, including, if needed, talking to managers and making a case for you with your boss or with people within your organization.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Cole. And just to ladder on to that a bit, is that as an organization within the Institute program, I think a lot of it is like in terms of building a case for your participation, taking a look at how your participation and your infill placement can actually enhance your performance within your organization. That's something, if you have a question about, feel free to connect with Cole or a member of our team after the webinar to discover how you can talk to your organization about participating. And so this next question is, I'm also laddering a bunch of questions here too. It has to do with, Jill, why did you choose to go experteering in Rwanda? And then a second layer to that is coming from applicants who are female who are interested in going abroad and experteering, but they are a bit concerned about going to a country working with, a culture where they don't really know anyone, don't speak the language, etc. So like, how did you navigate through all of that?
Sure, good questions. In terms of how I chose Rwanda, it sort of came about organically, and I would say this is one of the major benefits of being part of the cohort. During the initial in-person kickoff, at one of the dinners, I happened to sit at one end of the table with 3 amazing women who all had very different and diverse connections to Africa, whether being from there or living there currently, and in all different parts of Africa. And I really had the benefit of being able to hear all about their experiences and hear a little bit more about all the sort of opportunities and the diversity, and made me think about Africa in a way that I hadn't thought about it before. And then through the matching process, it really was about finding the right project fit. I was open to sort of going wherever made the most sense. For me, it was really about finding the right project. And that was a process to find the right one. But ultimately, the project that came up in Rwanda really was just the perfect fit in all of those ways. In terms of being a female and going to a place where you don't know the culture and may not know the language, it's a challenge for sure. MovingWorlds was really helpful in providing me support and offering connections if there were any in country. I would also say the other members of my cohort also offered a lot of support and potential contacts in country to be able to help me familiarize myself. And the organization through the planning process was really wonderful in making those connections too. It's also about doing some of your research and really just trusting your gut. I was originally matched to a different project in another place, and although I went through the process of actually doing the project planning, I ultimately did not feel comfortable going to where I was going to go, and I did have to step away from that project and then find one where I was more comfortable. So I would say, be true to what works for you, and don't be afraid to wait for the right project fit in a place that's going to make you the most comfortable. There's going to be so many things coming at you when you're immersed in a new place, that feeling somewhat comfortable about where you're going, I think, is really important. And it really is just about trial and error, and just doing the best you can when you get there, and just trying to work the connections that you can make before you go. And in terms of language, I guess I'd say I was lucky enough in Rwanda that most people speak English or French, and I can communicate in both. And in times where people only spoke Kinyarwanda, you kind of just, make hand signals or learn a few words here and there and do the best you can.
You get really good at playing charades, don't you?
Exactly, yeah.
Wonderful, thank you so much, Jill. So this next question has to do with the model of the Institute program, and maybe I'll put this one towards you, Cole. So the 6-month cycle, is it in a residency model? Can you talk a little bit more about the design and the structure of the in-person kickoff and then the virtual component of the program?
Sure, thanks, Millie. So yeah, we, another element of the diversity of our program is the amount of different countries that people are coming from. So folks are coming from all over the world. We've had over 18 countries represented in our fellowship to date. And so we really, we find it so important to start out with our 3.5-day immersive. So with our next one coming up in Washington, D.C., it's an intense weekend of getting to know each other, going deep on goal setting, getting visits from industry leaders, speakers, and really planning out the whole 6 months together. We build a lot of trust and familiarity, and we dive deep. So over the next 6 months, we can build on that connection. So after the 3.5-day immersive, you get to go home to wherever you are, whatever country that you currently live in, and we engage online. We have our own internal social network where we are communicating daily, sharing videos, sharing content, hosting webinars, having discussions. You're then working at some time during the 6 months in the field with your social enterprise placement, and then being supported online with reflection, with career next steps, and with everything throughout the 6 months. At the end of the 6 months, you become an alumni and you actually transition to a different online community that we have at MovingWorlds. So you get to continue learning, get to continue getting connected to career opportunities, to workshops, to trainings, and to networking with industry leaders. So we start out in person to get to know each other and build trust. And then we do everything we can to stay connected online and while we're in the field throughout the rest of the 6-month experience.
Okay, thank you so much, Cole. We have another question here, which is concerning workload, and maybe I'll have Jill start with her experience, and then Cole, if you have anything else to add, feel free to chime in. Essentially, this person is interested in finding out a little bit more about the workload. So this person writes, I work full-time right now. Is it realistic to juggle both a full-time job along with the fellowship workload?
Sure. So I can speak to my experience as I was also working full-time while going through the process. And it certainly is possible. The way that things are set up makes it very flexible and allows you to work it into your schedule in the way that makes the most sense for you. So for example, if you're unable to attend some of the webinars, they are recorded. Right? So you're able to watch those when you have time and then chime in the group discussions when it makes sense for you. I also found that it was helpful if I sort of put aside a certain amount of time once a week or a couple days a week to dive into it and just make it work with the schedule that worked for me. So it is definitely possible. The flexibility inherent in the process really makes it accessible for you to be able to do, even if you are working full-time.
Thank you, Jill. And Cole, do you have anything else to add to that?
No, I think that works great. I think that, we will pair you in accountability groups with people who can support you and can have kind of schedules that sync up with you, so you're always feeling a connection. We'll always be providing cheat sheets and summaries of every week so you know where you're at. One of the things that our fellows have loved the most is even in busy weeks, they can just go to one page and see, these are all the things that I can read. Maybe I have a little bit of time on Sunday, I can get all caught up. So yeah, we design it for busy working professionals because that's our audience, and those are the people who we believe are going to be able to have the most impact when they start to identify kind of how their skills translate into this work.
Okay, thank you so much, Cole. So the next question right here is related to like the in the field placement. This person is unsure about how his background would actually be used to support a host organization. And so the question is like, how do you determine which host organization to place the experteer in to ensure that an impact takes place? And if you guys don't mind, I'll just chime in for this one. So we have we have a thorough process where you connect with a member of our matching team, drawing in from your personal and professional goals, taking a look at your purpose drivers, like Jill mentioned earlier, and then trying to weave all of that into potential projects that you feel like you could actually contribute and make a significant impact on while stretching yourself to learn something new. So all of this is like a process, and we go through a number of calls and workshops to make it happen. And then what we do is we bring you and interested host organizations together to co-create what that project looks like. So that's basically what the planning guide that Jill was mentioning earlier talks about. And so it is a monster of a beast, but to Jill's point, it really does help to prepare you to hit the ground running. And so this is kind of how we ensure that impact does take place. And if you guys have any additional questions regarding this, feel free to connect with any of us afterwards to find out more. And so then I have one last question that came through. This one is specific to applications and deadlines. So this person is interested in finding out whether or not they can apply to a future cohort and then reserve a slot if they are actually accepted into the future cohorts, beyond the DC cohort, that is.
Yeah, and so we'll go through kind of the next steps coming up, but just for those who are interested in one of the cohorts in 2019, we have a rolling application process, And we also allow people who've been pre-accepted for a later cohort to reserve their spot. So when the application process for that cohort comes up, they don't have to worry about the cohort running out of room. So yep, absolutely, we do a rolling application process because we know that with people's full and busy lives, sometimes you need to plan further out. So yep, feel free to get in touch with us, submit your application earlier rather than later, and that gives us a really good idea on how to direct you.
All right. Thank you so much, Cole. And if we can go to the next slide. If you guys have any additional questions afterwards, feel free to contact and reach us at mwi@movingworlds.org. And here are basically next steps and dates to keep in mind on your agenda. The next cohort, which has an in-person kickoff, is going to be in Washington, D.C., and application closes June 30th. We are reviewing application on a rolling basis, like Cole mentioned, so feel free to submit your application as soon as you've made the decision to participate, and do connect with Cole or myself or anyone on the team if you have any questions about whether or not the fellowship is the right fit for you in this moment, or if you should apply to a future cohort. Acceptance will be announced between July 1st to July 15th, and will congregate in Washington, D.C. on August 31st to September 3rd. For in-person orientation, give lots of hugs to everyone. And then your social impact field placement will take place around October or January, depending on the length of your project. There's a lot of flexibility in starting date and ending date, and our team will work with you as well as your work and your life schedules to make it happen. And finally, the program closes on February 28th, 2019. That's so crazy to think about 2019. So we'll have an official virtual send-off at that point. However, that's not the last that you'll see of us. You'll continue to be involved in our community, our alumni network. You'll continue to be invited to capstone share-outs where you can connect with current and future experteers, find out what they're doing. You'll continue to be invited to industry leader webinars, and really continue to build that global network that is a big part of the MovingWorlds Institute program, and so many more wonderful, amazing things. So feel free to connect with us if you have any questions. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Cole for a wrap-up.
Great. So before we wrap up, just wanted to do one more scan if we have any other questions.
Oh, we do. Okay. One last question. Okay. So this one is specific to program scholarship and available funding. And if you could also share a little bit more about how other fellows have funded their experiences in the past.
Absolutely. So once you apply, you also will have the opportunity to submit a scholarship application. And so we do not offer full scholarships, but we do work with our fellows to try to find an amount that will work for them based on our limited pool of scholarship funds. So absolutely apply. We give scholarships with every cohort to make it possible for different professionals to join us. We've also had people to do fundraising in their communities, which we've supported them with. We've had employers help pay for the program or part of it. We've had people who've connected with local foundations and made the case, and just know that we are so happy to provide you with any letters of support, have any critical conversations with anyone within your community to make sure that this is something possible for you. And the last thing I'd say on that is we also offer financing options. So if you need to spread payments over the 6-month period, we can definitely work with you on that to make it more affordable and more possible for you.
All right, thank you so much, Cole. And the next question has to do with the general costs of the program application as well as the Institute as a whole. If you could go to slide 11, I think that has like a clear breakdown of all of the costs. Mark is getting there. There you go. So here you can see that the fellowship itself is $5,750, that's USD, and then a breakdown of what is involved in all of that. And to Cole's point, there are partial scholarships available as well as different financing options if you don't qualify for one of the scholarships, but do connect with a member of our team to find out more about that. And then one last question that just came through here. So this question talks about the qualifications for applicants, specifically for applicants who are in their mid-career stage, who have a lot of experience yet are open to continuing to grow and learn in new ways. And so I guess, Cole, the question would be, are the fellowship for people who are in an earlier stage of their professional growth, or are mid and senior professionals also qualified?
Millie, one thing I wanted to add real quick, it sounds like from rereading that this is someone who's later in their career and asking about the value for people who, we had talked a lot about the value for mid-career transitions, but asking specifically about the value and accommodations for people who are maybe retired or kind of looking for an encore career, and how we have a specific value add for that.
Yeah, and I'm happy to chime in quickly, and Mark, if you want to add anything on there. But one other thing that we've really celebrated in our cohorts is not only country diversity, but also age diversity. In every cohort, we've had someone who extremely experienced professional, maybe in one of their later stages of their career or looking for an encore career. And it's been amazing to have them. And we found that the Experteering placement has helped them to really make a transition. I mean, there's so many folks who've been working for decades in a field. They have a very specific expertise and set of accomplishments. And the MovingWorlds Institute Fellowship in many ways has served as a bridge to kind of move into that next stage of life, not only in understanding what's going to fulfill them in this next stage, but also how their skills apply to these new fields. So yeah, we absolutely provide accommodations and try to make this as meaningful as possible to people at different stages, and have supported people in later stages or their encore careers as well.
Yeah, and specifically, we published a story on our blog, the story of Lynn. Millie, you might be more accurate on date, but just within the last month or two. And I think in every cohort, there is that diversity that Cole mentioned. But what I would also invite you and anybody else on the webinar is, if you have a question about if the program is the right fit, we're happy to jump on a call and explore that fit even in front of application. So it's a great question to be asking. And we want to make sure that the way we're thinking about the program and connecting to mentors and guiding the experience, will help you achieve whatever that goal is. And I think we find out every application period, it's great for some. And then if it's not, we will also 100% either direct you to other programs or partners that we do think are a better fit. But yeah, based on that quick summary, it does remind me of their story of Celia or Lynn. And I think that there might be some great opportunities.
Alrighty. Millie, any last questions sneaking in before we close out our time?
There is one last question, and keep the questions coming if there are, and of course feel free to email us once again at mwi@movingworlds.org if you have any questions after this webinar is over. This last one asks, are there any plans for a kickoff in Africa for people who are from that region who traveling to the US may be more difficult and expensive? So I think if you go to slide 10, Mark, that gives an outline of all of the locations that we would be in next year in 2019, and the closest one would probably be in Kuala Lumpur. In terms of what would happen after that, I think that we're probably open to having an in-person kickoff in different parts of the world in the effort to make it as accessible as possible for as many people.
Yeah, and I would just say that, we've been, although we don't have a launch on the African continent coming up in the next year, we have had a lot of applicants and fellows who have come from a country in Africa, and some in our Amsterdam cohort, some in other ones. So we'll work with you throughout the process in the application, giving you all the documentation you need for a visa application. So yeah, we're here to support you. Please feel free to connect if you have any concerns or questions.
All right, and I think that's the last question for now. So cool, I'll let you wrap up.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for all the questions. Thank you for spending the time to be here with us. Know that we get in touch with me from the website. You can schedule a time to chat, have a one-on-one. Would love to do that. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Jill, for being here, representing the alumni community, and telling a little bit more about your story. It's the most powerful thing to hear, and we just love having you here.
Thank you so much, Cole. And if anybody does have any questions or want to chat to me more in particular with any questions you have, I'm totally open to that. Just let MovingWorlds know and they can put you in touch with me.
Sweet. Thank you for that, Jill. Just to wrap up, thank you for being here. Thank you so much for considering taking the next steps in your purpose-driven journey with us. And we're so excited to see your applications. Just as a reminder, applications for DC close at the end of next week. So please do everything you can to get them in as soon as possible. And if you have any questions that you need to close the loop on, get in touch with us now. So everyone have a wonderful day wherever you're calling in from, and we hope to talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks so much, everyone.